Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something really crucial if you're dreaming of building something new or even just want to understand innovation better.
Yeah, how big ideas actually happen.
Exactly, we're talking startups, but maybe not in the way you usually hear about them. We want to cut through the noise, give you a shortcut, really, to understanding a systematic way to turn ideas into reality.
That's right. And we're drawing heavily today from Eric Ries's big book, The Lean Startup. It's less about the romance of entrepreneurship
All right.
and more about actionable insights. How do you actually build a business when everything's changing, when it's all uncertain?
Okay, so let's start there, because there's this great startup myth, isn't there? That's all about like pure grit, a stroke of genius, perfect timing.
And that secret killer product that just appeared?
Yeah, that one. It's a nice story, but Ries really pushes back on that.
He absolutely does. And part of that myth is this idea that ideas are precious. People clutch onto them, afraid someone will steal them, or they polish one idea for years in secret. But honestly, the idea itself is rarely the main obstacle. Ries, he practically bets his arm that the average forget the Elon Musks for a second, probably has like at least 20 awesome ideas in their life. Ideas that could be real businesses.
20. Okay, so if it's not the lack of ideas and it's not just about determination,
Yeah.
what is the core problem then? What trips people up?
That's the key question, right? Ries argues it's not the ideas, the determination, the brilliance, or even the timing. It's the execution.
The execution.
Yeah, specifically the process of execution when you're dealing with extreme uncertainty. How do you systematically figure out what works? That's what we're diving into, 5 key bits of advice from his book that offer a real system.
Okay, execution. Let's break that down. Where do we start? Ries kicks off with this thing called the build, measure, learn feedback loop, which sounds simple, but it's quite different from traditional business planning, isn't it? Like, we're taught to make these massive multi-year plans.
Exactly. And that works fine if things are stable, but for a startup, the ground's constantly shifting, spending, many thousands of hours perfecting something.
Only for no one to want it anyway. The stakes are incredibly high.
Totally. But then the opposite extreme, the whole just do it mindset, that's not great either.
Even though Nike says so.
Yeah. Good slogan. But for a startup, it often just leads to chaos. You're busy, sure, but are you actually learning? Are you moving towards something customers will pay for? Probably not in a structured way.
So build, measure, learn is the middle ground, the system for navigating that chaos.
Precisely. That's the solution he proposes. You cycle through it quickly. The goal isn't just building stuff, it's figuring out the right thing to build that customers want and will pay for as quickly as possible.
Okay, so it's about speed and direction. Yeah, speed to learning, so you can quickly kill off that which doesn't make sense and double down on that which does. Efficiency, smart efficiency.
And what I find really interesting is how Ries flips the planning. Usually you plan, then act. But here, the actions are build, measure, learn.
But the planning happens backwards. You start by asking, what do we need to learn?
How do you do that?
By forming clear hypotheses. Basically, your best guesses about your customers, your market, your product, stated in a way you can actually test.
Okay, give me some examples. Like real-world hypotheses that maybe seemed crazy at the time.
Sure. Think about things that are obvious now, like commuters want to be able to order food from their cars.
Yeah.
Before, drive-thrus was everywhere. That was a hypothesis.
Okay, yeah.
Or people are willing to assemble their own furniture at home. Hello, IKEA.
Right.
Or even people are willing to pay monthly for being able to stream unlimited music online. Spotify, Apple Music.
Yeah.
That wasn't a given. It's amazing, isn't it? They seem so obvious now. But yeah, they were just assumptions waiting to be tested. So you've got your hypothesis. How do you actually test it? Quickly, empirically.
And that brings us nicely to the second big takeaway. Everything is a grand experiment.
Okay.
You test those hypotheses by running experiments with real people, potential customers, and the key thing, the common thread in good experiments, observe, don't ask.
Observe, don't ask. Why? Why not just ask people what they want? Seems easier.
Well, it seems easier, but people are actually notoriously bad at predicting their own future behavior or imagining solutions that don't exist yet.
Like the faster horse problem.
Exactly. Ask someone what they want. They might describe a slightly better version of what they already have. They often can't articulate a need for something truly new. But if you observe their behavior, their reactions...
You get unfiltered data.
Exactly. Real insights into their actual problems and what they might value. That's what Ries calls validated learning. Learning confirmed by real customer actions, not just opinions.
So thinking about experiments, do we even need to build a product right away to get this validated learning?
Good question. And often, no, not really. An experiment can be super simple.
Like what?
Like, imagine you have an idea for a service that helps people with their Tinder profiles. Maybe something claiming to improve your chances of getting a match by 500%.
Okay, ambitious.
Right. Instead of building the whole service, you could just throw up a basic landing page describing it. Maybe run a few Google ads pointing to it.
And just see who clicks sign up.
Exactly. You're testing demand, interest, maybe even price points if you mention a cost, all before writing a single line of code for the actual service. It's lean.
That's clever. Learning with our building. But, okay, sometimes you do need something more tangible, right? That leads to the MVP.
Yes, the minimum viable product. And Ries has this great way of redefining waste for startups here. It's not like in manufacturing. In traditional lean manufacturing, like from Toyota, waste is anything the customer doesn't value: extra inventory, defects, waiting time. But for a lean startup, waste is different. It's everything that doesn't lead to validated learning.
Oh. So effort spent on things you haven't learned are needed is waste.
Precisely, which is why the MVP is minimum and viable. It just needs the absolute features of utter importance. Nothing extra. It should not be polished any more than what's absolutely necessary to test your core hypothesis. The goal is learning, not launching a perfect product.
Which leads to that brilliant, slightly terrifying piece of advice Ries gives. If you are embarrassed about releasing the product to your potential customers, you are on the right track.
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it? Everything in us wants to polish and perfect.
Right. Hide it until it's amazing.
But that embarrassment means you're probably pushing it out quickly enough to learn before you've wasted time on features nobody actually cares about. It forces you to prioritize that learning.
Okay, so MVPs are minimal, maybe a bit embarrassing. What do they actually look like in practice? Are there different kinds?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Ries talks about many different types of MVPs, all designed to help you learn what solves a real problem and what people might pay for. He gives 3 really cool examples.
Let's hear 'em.
Okay, first, there's the video MVP. The classic example is Dropbox.
Yeah. Yes. The video.
Drew Houston, the CEO, made this simple kind of fake video showing how easy file sharing could be with their tool. He posted it online where techie people hang out.
And what happened?
The sign-up list for their beta exploded, went from 5,000 to 75,000 overnight, all based on a video showing the value proposition before the product was fully built. Massive validation.
Wow. Just from a video. Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2 is the concierge MVP. This is more high touch. You focus on just one or maybe a handful of early customers.
And you basically become their personal concierge?
Pretty much. You manually deliver the service or build the product tailored exactly to their needs and preferences. You're learning intimately about their problem and how to solve it, even if it's totally unscalable initially.
Like a financial advisor, testing a new strategy manually for a few clients first.
Exactly. Then, once you've nailed the value proposition manually, you gradually figure out how to automate it and scale it to more customers.
Makes sense. Start small, learn deep. And the third one, the Wizard of Oz MVP. Sounds fun.
It is kind of fun. It's where you pretend that you have developed a fancy technical solution while behind the curtains it's operated by humans.
So it looks automated, but it's actually people power.
You got it. Aardvark, which was like a search engine for subjective questions, best pizza place in Brooklyn, did this.
Okay.
Initially, when you asked a question, real people were finding and writing the answers behind the scenes. It let them test if people actually wanted this kind of Q&A service before building complex AI or algorithms. The user saw magic, but it was manual work validating the concept.
Very clever. Fake it till you make it. Or at least until you learn something. Okay, so you've used MVP, you've run experiments, you've got some validated learning that you're actually creating value. What's the focus then?
Then the focus shifts, right? It moves towards growth. And this is another key area where Ries offers structure. He argues there are fundamentally 3 different types of engines of growth.
Engines of growth, okay.
And his crucial point is that a startup should really pick one engine to focus on primarily. Pour your energy into optimizing that engine using those build, measure, learn cycles.
Focus is key. So what are the 3 engines?
All right, first up is the sticky engine. Think of businesses designed to attract customers for the long term and never let go.
Like subscription models.
Exactly. Or anything where repeat engagement is crucial. The main things you track are your new customer acquisition rate, how fast you're getting your customers, and your churn rate, how many are leaving or becoming inactive.
So companies like Gillette with razors and blades.
Perfect example. Or pretty much all online gaming companies. They want you coming back day after day. Low churn is vital. That's the sticky engine.
Got it. Sticky. What's the second engine?
The second is the viral engine. This is all about products that spread like epidemics.
Word of mouth on steroids?
Basically, yeah. The core idea is that each new customer brings in one or more other new customers just through using the product or telling people about it.
Okay.
The key metric here is the viral coefficient. If, on average, each customer gets you, say, 1.1 new customers, then you have viral growth. It just spreads exponentially.
And obvious examples are?
All social networks, right. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they rely on users inviting friends or sharing content that brings others in. Also, things like multi-level marketing businesses, though maybe less glamorous, operate on this principle.
Right. The network effect. Okay. Sticky viral. What's the third?
The third is the paid engine. This is maybe the most traditional. Growth comes primarily from paying for customers, usually through advertising.
So buy ads, get customers, make money.
Pretty much. The two critical numbers are CPA, your cost per acquisition, how much it costs to get one new paying customer, and LTV, the lifetime value of that customer, how much profit you expect to make from them over time.
And growth happens
If your LTV is greater than your CPA. The difference is your profit margin per customer, which you can then reinvest into buying more ads to get more customers. Lots of e-commerce businesses run primarily on this engine.
Okay. Sticky, viral, paid. 3 distinct ways to grow. I remember Ries quotes his mentor saying something like, startups don't starve, they drown. How does that fit with these engines?
That quote is so true. It means startups often die not from lack of opportunity, but from trying to do too many things at once. There's always so much you could do.
Right. You get overwhelmed.
Exactly. And these three engines provide focus.
Right.
By choosing one primary engine, you know exactly which metrics matter most. Are we optimizing churn, viral coefficient, LTV versus CPA? It helps focus the energy of the startup in the right place and stops you from drowning in possibilities.
That makes a lot of sense. Focus the energy. Okay, so you've got validated learning, you've picked a growth engine, but things don't always go smoothly, right?
Yes.
Which brings us to maybe the hardest part. Pivot or persevere?
Ah, yes. The big decision.
You need grit, right? A successful founder does not give up after facing a little bit of headwind. But you also can't be completely stubborn. You can't just hold on to his idea until he crashes either. It's this balance.
It's a really tough balance. Perseverance versus flexibility. Ries defines a pivot very specifically. It's a change in the strategy on how to achieve the overall vision.
So the big goal stays the same, but the how changes.
Exactly. You're not giving up on the destination, just changing the route.
Oh.
And he suggests a 3-step process for thinking about when to pivot.
Okay, what are the steps?
First, you use your MVP to establish a baseline. Get some real data on how your current strategy is performing against your key metrics.
Step 1, baseline.
Step 2, you attempt to tune the MVP towards the ideal. You run those build, measure, learn cycles, trying to improve things, optimize your engine.
Iterate, iterate, iterate.
Right. And then step 3, after giving it a real shot, you face the question, pivot or persevere? Are the improvements happening fast enough? Is this engine actually working? Or do we need a fundamental change in strategy?
But that feels like the million-dollar question. What is fast enough? Is like 10% improvement per year good, bad? It feels like such a gray zone.
Absolutely is a gray zone. And Ries acknowledges this. He says there's no clear-cut threshold here.
So no magic number.
No magic number. This is where intuition is needed and that we can only gain from experience. You look at the data, yes, but you also look at the market, the team morale, the trajectory. It's a judgment call.
Learn through doing, essentially. Okay, so if you do make that tough call and decide to pivot, what kinds of changes are we talking about? What does a pivot look like?
Ries lists several common types. One is the custom segment pivot. You realize the people you thought were your customers aren't that interested, but maybe a different group is really enthusiastic.
So you shift focus to the enthusiastic group.
Exactly. Or there's the value capture pivot. This is about changing how you make money. Maybe you started with a paid product, but you pivot to making it free and earning revenue through advertising instead. That's super common for companies using the viral engine.
Change the business model.
Right. And another big one is the engine of growth pivot. Maybe you launched hoping for viral growth, but your viral coefficient just isn't getting above 1.
It's not spreading.
Yeah, but maybe you discover through your experiments that your LTV, the lifetime value of the customers you do get, is actually really high. So you might pivot from trying to be viral to focusing on the paid engine, using that high LTV to fund advertising.
Switching tracks completely based on what you learned.
Exactly. And the crucial point here, the thing to really take away, is that a pivot is not a failure.
That feels important.
It really is. Discovering that something doesn't work might not be as useful as discovering that something does, but it's way better than trying to dig yourself out of a hole by sticking with the failing strategy.
So it's actually smart. It's learning.
It's adaptive learning. Ries points out that almost every successful startup has done a major change to its strategy at some point. Pivoting is often a sign of strength and responsiveness, not weakness.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to unpack from the lean startup. Let's try and summarize the core journey here. The main goal, really, is to figure out what customers actually want and will pay for, and do it quickly.
Right. And you do that through constant experiments, using things like MVPs, minimum viable products, to get validated learning. Real data, not just guesses.
And then focusing your growth efforts by consciously choosing and optimizing one primary engine of growth, sticky, viral, or paid.
Exactly. And underpinning all of it is this blend of perseverance and flexibility, knowing when to push through challenges, but also recognizing when a pivot, a strategic shift based on learning, is the smarter move, and remembering that pivot isn't failure.
Absolutely. So thinking about everyone listening, what does this all mean for you? Even if you're not building the next big tech startup, these ideas seem really applicable, don't they?
They really do. Think about projects at work, career changes, even personal goals. This idea of running small experiments, getting real feedback or data-validated learning before committing huge resources, that's useful anywhere.
True. Less grand planning, more testing and adapting.
And that final point about pivoting. Ries says intuition is needed when deciding to pivot or persevere, and that comes from experience. So here's a thought to leave you with. How might you intentionally cultivate that kind of intuition in your own work or life? What small, low-risk experiments could you run, not just in a startup, but anywhere, to gain some validated learning without having to go all in right away? What could you test, observe, and learn from starting tomorrow?